Attitude. Keep your thoughts positive because your thoughts become your words. Keep your words positive because your words become your behavior. Keep your behavior positive because your behavior becomes your habits. Keep your habits positive because your habits become your values. Keep your values positive because your values become your destiny. Mahatma Gandhi. Attitude is having a settled way of thinking or feeling about someone or something that is reflected in our actions toward that person or thing. Simple enough, but here's the kick. Behavioral specialists have had a long-standing chicken or the egg argument over how our thoughts and feelings are formed. Do our actions shape our attitudes, or is it the other way around, with our attitudes being the source of our actions? I think Gandhi, in the quote above, got it right, and science seems to agree for the most part. What we do and what we say will have a strong influence in how we think and about our objectives of our words and actions. The next logical question is whether or not we can deliberately change or eliminate an undesirable attitude by changing how we act. The question is an important one for habit replacement because it points us to the best strategy to optimize results. When your goal is to change an attitude or mindset, your action plan should begin with learning new behaviors that are targeted to change your way of thinking. It is important to keep in mind that the lines separating thought goals from behavior goals are fuzzy. They overlap each other. So do the techniques for achieving those goals. In other words, we can use every tool in the box or a combination of 2 or 3 as long as they accomplish the goal. For example, visualization and affirmations, along with consistent practice of physical actions, are all great tools for habit replacement because they encourage the brain to map out new neural pathways that establish the foundation for new habits. The general idea here is that we can change our behavior with consistent practice. When the behavior change becomes a routine, our attitude should make the adjustment to fit the new reality, a habit of success. Now we've just about come full circle. Is it easier to think your way into acting or to act your way into thinking? The answer, I believe, should be obvious. You can change or control your attitude by first changing your behavior. Remember that habits can be mental as well as physical. Your mental skills need practice just like any other. Repetition is the key. Like athletes who practice the same pattern of movement over and over again, you also need to practice the behavior pattern that will become the new habit, and then continue to practice in order to maintain and improve your competency. Practice also makes it easier to achieve the expected outcome and lowers the odds of repeating the same mistakes. With enough practice, you will catch yourself thinking about something else at the same time. Have you ever driven home from work, and by the time you pull in the driveway, you can't remember how you got there? Now that's an established habit. When you know a routine this well, you are confident that when it really counts, it will get done right. Mental skills operate on the same principles as the behavior-based skills, only here the goal is to fill your head with the right stuff so there is no room for negative, self-defeating thoughts to find their way in. I call this controlling your environment. For example, imagine that you are driving to work. You have your favorite music playing on the radio. Then there's a breaking bulletin with bad news in between songs. Why not listen to an audiobook instead to block out the negative news on the car radio? When you get home, the TV is on. Oh no, more bad news. How about reading something uplifting instead of watching TV? Reading is one of the best things you can do to improve your mental fitness and your overall point of view. Why not spark up those neural connections I keep telling you about that flood your brain with just the positive stuff? Here's another perspective. Think of the attitude as mind control. No, this is not a form of brainwashing. It is the fact that you have the choice of making a commitment that controls what goes on in your brain and what goes on in your mind. Or you can leave the door open and allow someone else to do it for you. And that's a truly frightening thought. Being a success in life doesn't require originality. More often it depends on the mundane things like your attitude towards your job or career, what goals you choose, and how hard you are willing to work to achieve those goals. It would be fantastic to come up with an original idea that produced an overnight fortune in profits, something like Velcro or whiteout, but the reality is that success of this kind is rare and fleeting, and besides, it's not a thing that you can guarantee just by modeling yourself after those who have already done it. Finding a mentor certainly helps, but this is just one step in a much larger process. You could also try putting in more energy and enthusiasm in what you already do every day. This is another valid step that can take you towards a higher level of success. Great. Now you have 2 steps in a much larger process with many more steps to go. Achieving success is, in a way, like algebra. You won't get points for originality, but when you follow each step carefully, you always wind up with the correct answer. Hey, it's the algebra of success. Successful failure. I'm a firm believer in positive thinking and in the idea that failure can move you closer to your goal when your attitude is positive, your mind is open to learning, and change is something you embrace. To me, this is failure done right. Maybe if we were to start thinking about change differently, then failure would lose some of its power to scare us. We only have to look as far as our own bodies to get a glimpse of how this works. The cells in our bodies are constantly changing and being replaced. Case in point, every 5 days, all the cells that line the stomach are regenerated. If you have a really bad meal on Monday, by Saturday it's all forgotten, at least from your stomach's point of view, because all the old cells have been replaced with new ones. Every 45 days, all the cells of your liver are new. After 90 days, a new skeleton. As the theory goes, in 7 years you should have a brand new body. 7 years is also the time it takes for a banker to declare off your credit report. Another way for a whole new you. What I'm getting at is not a debate over cellular renewal, but the fact that our bodies are automatically set up to maintain a healthy state of being. All we need to do is give it a little help. More to the point, imagine if we did this with our thinking. A bad experience would go the route of those cells lining our stomach and would be replaced. No need to hang on to the bad memories, mistakes, and failures beyond recognizing them and learning a lesson perhaps. Then it's time to get on with living. Fear is the vestige of the primitive, instinctive response of our real perceived threat. Turning again to our ancient ancestors for an example, fear would have been an important mechanism for survival. The growl of a pissed-off hungry bear would have kicked on the brain's fight or flight instinct, sending our ancestors running for safety or throwing a hand axe in defense. Running away was a habitual response to fear, and it has persisted to this day. Talk about a stubborn habit. Today, we continue to live and struggle with our fears. The majority of them, the fear of failure included, have been drilled into our memories where they reside in the corners of our mind until a trigger brings out the defensive response to a perceived threat. The fear of failure is especially irrational with its insidious hold that keeps us from taking intelligent risk that, if we were at least to try, we might just take the next step towards a more extraordinary life. Challenge your fear. Think of fear as an old habit, one that you can now replace with a new way of thinking and a positive view that embraces change. Positive mindset. When your attitude is a positive and you begin every day in the direction of your goal, you are absolutely certain to get there. It is still possible to experience a setback or failure despite your best efforts simply because you cannot control every single variable. There are things that you do have control of, such as your attitude and how you react to failure. For example, what do you do before leaving the house when it looks like it might rain? Maybe you can't accurately predict the weather 100% of the time, but you can mitigate the risk by choosing to take along an umbrella. Here's another way to look at being positive. Try catastrophizing the outcome of a problem or situation. In other words, imagine the most extreme possible consequence of failure. Now, compare that to a rational, more likely result if you fail. You'll probably end up somewhere other than where you had planned. It could be a place just as good as where you would be if you did nothing. Or it could be worse. Or who knows, you just might have a happy accident that puts you somewhere even better. Do you know how many positive things that have happened in this world as a result of a mistake? I can name several off the top of my head. Post-it notes were a mistake. Febreze fabric softener was a mistake. The microwave oven, an accidental side effect. Heck, even some of Thomas Edison's 1,000 patented inventions were the unintentional consequences of a failure. You can attract all sorts of neat stuff when your attitude is right. It's like being a cool stuff magnet. Maybe you could be a new superhero, the great magnetractor, master of a universe that is helpless to resist attraction of your positivity. It's like the laws of thermodynamics. Positive in equals positive out. There are very strict rules on the physics at play that can't be stopped. Why not use them to your advantage? People often tell me that I have it easier than they do. that I'm always positive and upbeat and they wish they had been born naturally positive like I was. Hello, people. We're all born positive. If you are acting negative, well, that's exactly right. You are acting. You have practiced, drilled, rehearsed, and performed the role that you play in your life. But guess what? It's time to change characters. Go back to being like a child. Even J.C. himself says so in the Bible. What exactly does it mean to go back to being like a child? In one word, enthusiasm. With life or with the God force within you. Sense that you are alive. Be with life in the present moment. Participate. If you are not enthusiastic now, what does that say about you and how you feel on the day that you die? Does the notion of regret come to mind? That doesn't sound like it can be a good thing at all. Okay, I can hear some of you accusing me of just taking a bunch of words and using them to my advantage. Guilty. That's exactly what I'm doing, and you can do the same thing. It's a positive move. Remember, words can be powerful. It's no exaggeration to say that wars have been fought over them. Why not use words instead to send a positive message to others? I prefer to control my environment, both mentally and physically. I read and I listen to positive, inspirational recordings each chance I have. At the gym, in my car, at home, every morning, every day. If I don't do this, I risk of handing over my power and control to my environment and my life to someone else. And I might not like what someone else plans to do with me. Pay attention to your immediate environment. Are you allowing the negative in the world to control you? Even a thing as simple as what you listen to can mean the difference in whether or not you determine your own environment and your own attitude. For those who are stubborn about the need to hear what is going on in the world, trust me, you will continue to hear news you feel you need to hear from the people you come in contact with throughout the day. Let that be enough for a while and see if it makes a difference or not. A few more words about the law of attraction. Something that works in your favor only when it is followed by the law of action. You cannot just sit at home and visualize your life the way you want it to be and expect anything to change. Thinking alone does not make it so. Yes, visualization and meditation are extremely important as tools, but they have to be teamed up with a positive attitude and actions that are consistent with your goals. This is the trifecta. Imagine positive action is the law of attraction meets the law of action.